Everyone, welcome back to the channel. And in today's video I'm actually going to try to take a time lapse. I'm going to actually use two devices. I'm going to use my Canon, my main camera, my 90D, and hang on a second here as I go across the snow here, and I'm also going to try my taking a time lapse with my GoPro. It has a capability to do a time lapse. So I'm down here at the Buffalo at the Erie Basin Marina, and I've been wanting to come down here and get a time lapse for a while. Today probably actually isn't the best day because there's not a whole lot of cloud cover. Past couple days have actually been pretty good for cloud cover, but well, this is Buffalo, this is winter. And 5 days ago, some parts of the area had over 6 foot of snow. So I wasn't even sure if I could get down here, if it'd be open. So I gave it a couple days, and as it turned out, most of the snow now is melted. What I'm going to try to get is the sunset behind the lighthouse, or next to the lighthouse here. So we'll see how that works out. Let me get set up, because no matter how early it seems I leave, I always get here with not a whole lot of time to set up. So I'll get set up, and we'll get talking a little bit about time lapse. Okay, so I got my two cameras set up. I set up my GoPro, and I also set up my main camera, the 90D, Canon 90D. The location I chose here is maybe not the best location, but I like it because it's actually got a little bit of concrete here. So if my GoPro happens to fall over, it's going to fall on that, not in the water. Lesson number one when you're taking time lapses, probably want to familiarize yourself a little bit with your equipment. I don't know how to get into the settings on the time lapse on the GoPro. I got here a little later than I wanted to, so I didn't take the time to try to find it. I just used the default settings. We'll see how that works out. Maybe it'll be garbage time lapse, but yeah, I should have familiarized myself with it a little bit before I came down here. So with the 90D, I have taken time lapses with the 90D before. Actually, normally I use my M50 for time lapses, but it has no internal intervalometer, and it has no way to plug in an external intervalometer. So I guess they figure you don't want to take time lapses with the M50. What I was able to do was I found an app to do time lapses. The problem is that connects via Bluetooth, and it's not always reliable, and sometimes it would drop the Bluetooth connection, and then the time lapse would stop shooting, and that's not what I wanted. And I like my M50. It's a little tiny camera. It's great for, if you just want to go out and do some kind of like street photography, or don't want to be carrying around a big heavy camera. It's good for that, but it does lack some of the niceties that the larger and more expensive cameras have. Don't get me wrong, it's a great camera. It's actually my first camera, so it's a great starter camera. So if anybody's looking for a starter camera that's more on the inexpensive side, highly recommend the M50. With my Canon 90D, I do have, it does have, it's not an internal intervalometer, or I take that back. I think it does have an internal intervalometer, but it only takes 99 exposures. It only goes up to 99. So if you want to take a longer time lapse, that doesn't necessarily work. So they do have where you can do longer than that, but it actually turns it, instead of individual images inside the camera, it turns it into, I think it's an MP4 or an MOV, I don't remember which one, but which I don't necessarily like because I can't do the adjustments on the images. The other nice thing about taking separate images with the intervalometer is that each one is a separate image. So if one of those images out of the time lapse is a really nice photo, you know, one image. You can actually take that image and treat it like an image. So that's one advantage of taking time lapses this way. You know, I'm taking it with the GoPro just to see what it's like. Probably isn't a good example because I wasn't familiar with the settings and everything that I needed to do. But actually, the sky's starting to look a little nice. It's starting to get a little color. I'll show you the back of the camera here. You can see my settings. I'm at 1/200th of a second on f/16. And I actually have the ISO on auto, so as the sun goes down, it'll adjust on its own. I know some people don't like to do that. You know, and if it was cloudier, maybe I wouldn't do that, but without all the clouds, you know, I'm not in risk of the sun going behind the cloud, and then it kind of looks a little funky if that happens, and you're on auto ISO, it can flip around and stuff. So I'm on 1/200th of a second. f/16 for the f-stop, 1/25th. Well, the ISO currently is at 125. That'll change as the sun goes lower. And probably what I should have done was set the max ISO to something like 800 or 900, because once the 90D is an APS-C sensor, once it gets above 800, the noise starts to get really bad. Lesson number 2. And this applies even whether you're taking time lapse or not. Always plan to get there earlier than you think you should, because I always find myself just rushing to get stuff set up, and it's probably not always the best, because then I'm not getting the best image because I'm just rushing, trying to get things set up, get things going, and yeah, that's probably not a good practice to be in. And the third thing you might want to consider when you're taking time lapse, well, not consider, you always want something sturdy. Now I've got this is my Vanguard tripod. It's pretty sturdy, it's a bit hefty. As a matter of fact, I'm actually thinking about getting a second tripod, because carrying this around when I do go on landscape hikes, it's a little heavy, but it is sturdy, and I don't have any worries about my camera moving with that. The GoPro is on a Joby mini Gorilla Pod, and it's got it wrapped around that railing. One of the reasons why I didn't come down on Monday, we had 50-mile-an-hour winds, and even with my steady tripod, I'm sure the camera would have been moving, and it would have messed up your time lapse. So, that's something you want to consider: is how windy is it? Is the wind gonna move your camera, and it's gonna make your time lapse look a little wonky? There are things you can do to fix that, but it's better to not have to do that. As you can see behind me, the sun has actually started to go down below the horizon. And with the settings that I had on my camera, let me switch it around here. You can see that actually right now it's hitting 800 on the ISO, so it's probably going to start introducing some noise into the images. So I don't know how much further beyond this these sets of images I'll continue to take photos, but we'll let it run for another, I don't know. Well, the sky's lighting up pretty good, so I'll let it run for another 15-20 minutes maybe, and we'll see how it goes. The GoPro's still clicking away over here. You can't really see anything on the back. It turns off the display, so to save battery, but I don't know, we'll see how they turn out. The sun has actually gone way down now. I still have the camera shooting. I did adjust it. Let's see here. I did adjust the shutter speed to 1/15th, so I don't know what that'll look like when we time lapse together in Adobe. I probably should do the drone. I don't know, it's a beautiful night for it, but I just don't know. I don't have my buddy with me, Bob, who flies drones with me. And I do like to have somebody just around when I'm doing that, especially at night. So I probably won't put the drone up. I'll wait till Bob can come down with me sometime, and I'll get the shot then. But it's a beautiful night out here. A couple other people came out. Got Felix here, who I've been chatting with. Say hi, Felix. It'll be on YouTube. And another photographer came down, and then we got a couple people down here watching the sunset. But considering the weather we had over the weekend, this is beautiful. The sunset, the clouds, we got a little bit of a cloud right now. There's a little bit of a marine layer out there, but it didn't affect the sunset too much. It did light up the bottom of those clouds really nicely. That what I call the second blush that you get, and I don't know. Hopefully the time lapses come out, and if they do, here they are. This first time lapse is the time lapse from the GoPro, and as you can see, you really can't tell that it's a time lapse except for the quick movement of the waves, but there is no real movement in the sun or the clouds. That is primarily because I didn't know how to change the settings, and once I got home and figured out how to change the settings, I felt a little silly because it's actually fairly easy to do. But what I can do in this case is do a little post-production magic and do what is called speed ramping. And once I do that, you can see that the time lapse actually looks much better, and you can see that movement in the clouds and the sun. This second time lapse was taken with the DSLR, my Canon EOS 90D. I have to say, I think of the two, I prefer this one. I didn't have to do any speed ramping. The colors seem a little bit richer, deeper, and the motion seems to be maybe a little bit smoother. So which one is your favorite? Let me know in the comments down below. So the 90D stopped taking photos. It took 916 exposures, but I'll stitch it together in Adobe, and hopefully they'll come out. GoPro is still going, but it's pretty dark. I'm underneath the street lights here. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.